Hi, I'm Chris Gilpin and I'm here to answer your questions on behaviour management. Okay, so the question I've been sent is, how do you deal with a student not following any instructions? And that's from James F. So, you have a student and you've got the majority of your students on side, it's a nice class, but there's that one student. The one student who isn't really getting what you're trying to do, doesn't want to conform to all your expectations, doesn't want to stop talking when you've asked for silence, doesn't want to do any work in class. It's the $1 million question, and if there was a perfect strategy that worked for all students like this, then someone would write a book and make a fortune. Unfortunately, it's not that simple. First of all, what are the students' needs? Are they on the SEN register, for instance? Is there anything specific about their background that will help you support them? I think it's quite easy for teachers to disregard sections of the SEN register and think, oh, well, if I'm just a good teacher in total, then all the SEN sort of issues should fall into place. Sometimes there's some very specific difficulties that you need to be doing your lessons slightly different to accommodate. For instance, there are some students that have a SEN difficulty in which they need support. They need one-on-one support with the teacher. They will not understand it when you're standing up the front going through it. For instance, there's some SEN needs in which they feel like they need to be involved more in the lesson. That even if it's just getting them to hand out the books, the physical movement of them handing out the books, or the physical or the reward that they get from you saying well done for doing that, etc., will help them. Many of those things also you can carry through with students that don't have an SEN difficulty. I would first port of call if a student was being difficult and I found out that they had an SEN difficulty is talk to Senko, talk to teaching assistants, talk to anyone else who's worked with that student on that difficulty, and ask them and say, right, what has worked with those students? Putting the SEN difficulties aside, say if they are not on the SEN register or the SEN difficulty is something that is not related to their behaviour and you're dealing with it in other ways. The same things still apply. Talk to other teachers who teach them. Talk to people who know them. Talk to their form tutor. Talk to their parents. There's often sometimes and occasionally where you find a strategy that a teacher has found that works. Sometimes the teachers are just amazing teachers. They've been teaching for years. They have their reputation in the school and there's not an awful lot of help they can give you. Like, get more experience. Okay, well, I can't really do that. So occasionally there's some really good tidbits you can get from those agencies or those people. As I said, with parents, there are some parents who have been amazing and some parents who are incredibly supportive. I've had deals with parents where they don't get to play their Xbox if they haven't had a good lesson. And sometimes the knowledge of the fact that you're talking to parents means those students straight away realise that you mean business. A lot of teachers do not ring home. A lot of teachers don't have regular contact with home. So if you're the teacher that does, that student probably will remember that they need to behave in your lesson. Sometimes though, parents are not so effective, unfortunately. I had a dealing with a student who I suggested to parents, right, okay, anytime, and I was his form tutor, anytime he didn't just complete his report or didn't get a good grade on his report, remove his Xbox. And the response was, oh, we can't do that, his dad plays the Xbox. I said, okay, right, well, why don't you remove the cable from the back of the Xbox and give it to his dad, so whenever his dad wants to play, he can plug it in, and then when his dad doesn't want to play, he can unplug it and take it with him, and that's that solved. Oh no, we can't do that, the dad would get annoyed that he had to plug it in every time. So there's only so much you can do, and sometimes you meet with parents and you realise that it's not going to be effective. It's unfortunate, but sadly, there are some students who, with with behaviour issues, that sometimes it's to do with parents potentially. There are other times, as I said, that parents are amazing, and I really don't understand why this student is so badly behaved, given the fact that their parents have been so amazing. So it's not always going to be the case that you ring home, but it's definitely worth trying. It's definitely worth having a go. There have been so many students that have been so much better behaved because I just took the time just to ring home and talk to them. So you've rung home, you've talked to form tutors, you've talked to teachers of that student, you've perhaps observed that student in other lessons if you have time, which not many people do, and it's still not getting anywhere. Well, there's stuff you can do in the lesson, and I think the most important thing is to set your lesson up in a way that that student knows exactly what your expectations are and whether they've met them. With the work, sometimes it's effective to tell them what question you expect them to get up to. Sometimes it's not. And I know some subjects they don't necessarily have questions in that as a format, but what do you expect them to do? What's their minimum requirement? With some students that works well. Now, the flip side of that is with some students, they will get up to where you've told them they have to get up to and then stop. With some students, definitely students like that, I would say to them, I have an expectation of where you need to get up to. You need to get up to that, and I'm not going to share that with you, but I will let you know at the end of the lesson if you've reached that target. And you've got to judge with the student what the best strategy is. And there's some students that can't cope with the unknown and need to know exactly what your expectations are, and that's fair enough, so you tell them. So, make sure the tasks are accessible. Sometimes, especially with maths and science and subjects where you're going to get students not even understanding how to answer the first question in the lesson themselves, you need to make sure it's accessible. You need to make sure that they can do what you're asking them to do. So, for instance, if I'm teaching a maths lesson on adding fractions with different denominators, I will make sure that the question 1 and 2, especially if there's a student that I know is behavioural because he can't access or she can't access the work, I will make sure that there's some really simple questions for question 1 and 2 so that they can feel like they can get on with it. I also do minimal, but I also do copying of notes. I make sure that they're as minimal as possible. The reason I ask them to copy notes is so that I can see straight away whether it's an access issue, whether they can't access the work, or whether they're just being naughty. And it's really easy straight away to see the difference between the students. The students I have behaviour issues with who do copy all the work, I know straight away, right, that I'm pitching my lesson wrong, even though they're a level whatever or a grade whatever on the spreadsheet that I'm given or whatever, on their test or whatever it is. They're clearly not for this lesson, so I need to go right the way back with them. And they will thank you for it. They will realise that you're helping them out. They will realise that you're doing something different for them, and you don't necessarily need to make a big song and dance about it. Just give them a worksheet or give them the textbook number or whatever your work is on, and just say, right, I want you to start from here, and I want you to really make sure you understand the basics of this. So, with the actual lesson itself, make sure you're as structured as possible. I have videos on here on how to structure a really good lesson, but make sure that there is that structure in there so that they know what's coming up. The worst lessons for behavioural management for students with behaviour management is ones that you go, right, you've got an hour to do this, get started, because there's no structure there, and they feel that they can do whatever they like in their heads. The students with behaviour issues want to behave. There's not many students I've met who don't want to behave. They will thank you for giving them an environment that they can behave, and they will like you as a teacher for putting the time in and effort in to make sure that they can behave. There have been, in my 9 years teaching, whatever it's been, 2 students who just weren't going to play ball, and that's 2 students out of goodness knows how many classes I've taught. With those students, you need to go higher up. And those students, you need to refer to your head of department, your SLT, or whatever it is, whatever the next stage up is, and say to them, look, I'm having real problems with this. Both those students who weren't playing ball, and an awful lot of it with those two students was drug related, was alcohol related, violence at home. Both of them had got into trouble with the police, and they were known by the police agencies. And there was a lot of other stuff that was sort of really the link towards it. Both those students had been violent to other members of staff, etc., etc. Both those students eventually got expelled, unfortunately, and that's obviously not a successful outcome for anyone. But unfortunately, we are not miracle workers. When students get to the age of, say, their exams, their GCSE exams of 16 years old, or their A-levels of 18, now that the criteria has moved on, of when students can leave education or training, you can't do very much with them when it comes to extreme cases. 99% of students, as I said though, are not extreme cases, and giving up on students that aren't extreme is absolutely critical that you don't. You've got to keep pushing, you've got to keep doing stuff. Everything I've said in this video and an awful lot more is available for you to try and work with those students. If you want to read more about this, please read my book on Amazon. The link is somewhere around here, or go to the website and watch some more videos. Cool, thank you very much.